Chapter 9. Audrey applied the last dab of lipstick and leaned forward to inspect the finished product in the mirror. Not bad, if she did say so herself. When the knock sounded at the door, her heart fluttered in her chest. She hadn't expected to fall for someone in Star Lake, and certainly not so fast. With a smile, she flung the door open to greet Blake. But it wasn't Blake, who stared back at her from the front stoop. "Tony? What are you doing here?" On the other side stood the man she thought she'd never see again, the dark-haired Italian who had left her 6 months ago. "I came for you and my son, Audrey. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I should have been." "How did you even find me?" Confusion covered Audrey, clouding her thoughts. She and Tony had never spoken of her hometown. He had never appeared interested. "Des told me you came home for money. I had no idea you were from such a small town, but once I arrived, it was easy to follow the gossip train to your house. You don't have to stay any longer. Return to LA with me and let's create a life together." Audrey opened her mouth to say no, but indecision flooded her. She wanted to go back to LA, didn't she? It's what she had told herself when she first moved back. But now Blake was in the picture, and she was no longer sure. "I'm not positive I want to go back. I mean, I want to act again, but there's something magical about this town." Tony blinked at her. This town? This town has one stoplight and no Starbucks. Why would you live in the middle of nowhere when you aren't forced to?" Audrey shrugged. "I don't know. There's something about the small town vibe I like. It's kind of growing on me again." Caden's cry interrupted the discussion, and Audrey turned to get him. "Is that him? I want to see him." Tony followed her into the house and to Caden's room. As Audrey picked Caden up out of the crib, Tony reached for him. "Please, let me hold my son." After a moment's hesitation, Audrey held the bundle out, adjusting his arms the way the nurse had showed her that first day in the hospital. Though sweet, the image triggered the memory that Tony hadn't been there, that he had left her when she started gaining weight to have the baby alone. "I need to get his bottle. Can you hold him without dropping him?" "I think I can manage," Tony said with a narrowed look. Audrey wasn't so sure, but she exited the room anyway. She filled the bottle quickly and returned, afraid to leave Caden too long. "Here, let me take him," she said, holding out her arms. "I can feed him. Just hand over the bottle." Audrey bit her lip, but before she could argue, a knock sounded at the door. Blake. Oh no, this will not be good. "Who's that?" Tony's eyes shifted to the door, and he moved that direction. "A friend of mine," Audrey said. "I'll get the door. You sit in the chair and feed Caden." With heavy feet, Audrey walked to the door, playing different scenarios over in her head. She could tell Blake Tony was here, but how would he react? The other option involved lying, which brought a different kind of unease, and Blake would see right through the lie and want an explanation. "Evening," he said as the door opened. "Hi." He leaned in for a kiss, but she placed a hand on his chest, stopping the motion. Tony's here." Blake's face blinked for a moment as if trying to place the name, and then he nodded, but his face remained devoid of emotion. Audrey hated hurting him. "I didn't invite him," she continued, hoping to ease the evident tension in the air. "He found out where I lived from my old roommate and just showed up. I wanted to throw him out, but Caden is his son." "I understand. Do you want me to stay?" His voice held no emotion and tugged at Audrey's heartstrings. Though she wanted him to stay, with no idea what Tony would do, she worried his staying would make the situation worse. "Can we take a rain check and talk at work tomorrow?" Blake took a deep breath and nodded, sadness manifesting across his handsome features. "Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow." Audrey couldn't let him leave without trying to make him understand her conundrum. But as she reached out to touch his arm, Tony's voice sounded from behind her. "Who is this?" "This is my friend Blake. We had planned to hang out tonight before you showed up." Audrey fought to keep her voice calm. Caden was still in Tony's arms, and fear at what he might do if challenged coursed through her veins. "Well, I'm in town now to take care of Audrey and Caden, so thanks for stopping by, Brad, but Blake. The name is Blake." Blake's shoulders tensed as his eyes narrowed. Audrey took a step toward Tony, hoping to extricate Caden from his arms in case blows were about to rain down. "Whatever. We're good, so you can leave." Audrey reached out for Caden, but Tony turned away, clutching the baby in his large hands. Blake's eyes flashed. "I'll leave, but only because Audrey asked, and I'll be checking in with her again." As the door closed behind Blake, the anger bubbling in Audrey rose to the surface. "That was rude, Tony. Blake is a friend." "Looks like he wants to be more than friends." "Maybe he does. Maybe I do. After all, you left me when I was 5 months pregnant because I gained too much weight. He knows I have a kid, and he doesn't care about my weight." "I'm sorry I left, Audrey. I wasn't sure I could be a dad, but I want my son in my life." Tony crossed to the couch and sat down, still cradling Caden in the crook of his arm. Audrey crossed her arms, angry at Tony's leaving and then showing up unannounced, but the ire fizzled the longer she watched him. Tony held Caden and gazed at him as if he wanted to be a father. How often had she dreamed about him coming back and raising their son with her? And shouldn't she want Caden to be around his real father? But then there was Blake. Audrey felt closer to Blake in 1 week than she could remember being to Tony the whole time they had been together. Audrey sighed as she sat in the chair across from him. What was she going to do now? The snow crunched under Blake's feet on the journey back to his truck. This was an unexpected turn of events. Not only was he having to overcome Audrey's parents' objection to him, but now Caden's father was in the picture. Max was busy behind the counter when Blake stepped into the diner. He chose the last empty seat at the counter, next to Ned. "Hello, Blake. Where is your pretty friend tonight?" Ned asked, closing his book and turning his attention on Blake. Blake shook his head, not wanting to drudge through the issue with Ned, whom he rarely spoke to. Something came up. Max, overhearing the exchange, shot Blake a questioning look. "Just a burger for now," Blake said, knowing Max would want the full story later. Max nodded and put the order in, and when the burger arrived, Blake tried to eat it, but couldn't muster the desire to finish it. An hour later, the last customer left. After locking the door and flipping the sign to closed, Max walked back to the counter and sat next to Blake. "Okay, spill it. What's going on?" A long, deep sigh spilled out. "We were supposed to meet tonight and brainstorm ways to smooth the issue with her parents, but when I got there, Tony was there." Max's brow furrowed. "Who's Tony again?" "Caden's father. Evidently, he just showed up unannounced, and she seemed unsure of what to do. I think I love her, but I don't want to keep a child from his father. I don't know what to do." Blake dropped his head into his hands. Max clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Hey, I know I'm not as religious as you, but don't you always say God knows best? I think the best thing you can do is wait. Let her know you're there, but wait and see what happens." Blake raised his head to regard his friend. "I wasn't sure you had been listening, but I'm glad some of my advice wore off on you. It's nice to hear it back, but it doesn't make it any easier to follow." "It never does, my friend," Max said,